Hey everybody, it's Sarah, and it's Bearded Saturday, and today we're talking about comparisons. Comparing. We all do it, and that's really unfortunate because it's a complete waste of time. Your value as a human being lies not in the way that you can imitate and measure up or fall down in relation to others, but in your uniqueness and in your individuality. And it takes us so long, like into our 30s and 40s and 50s, for us to realize that, and that's just really, really tragic, in my opinion. People think that comparing is a bad thing. I'm not sure that I really agree. I think comparing is very, very healthy. We're social beings. We want to know where we stand in relation to each other, and comparing, I think, can be very, very healthy because you're aware of what's going on around you and you're aware of what is working and what's not working. The difficulty comes is when you are comparing and you're constantly coming up on the short end, because that is indicative of the fact that you're not comparing yourself fairly, and your distortions are getting in the way of an accurate comparison. Because the truth of the matter is that there will always be someone thinner than you, and there will always be someone fatter than you. There will always be someone more beautiful than you, and there will always be someone uglier than you. And richer, and smarter, and poorer, and dumber, and we live on a spectrum, and a spectrum of acceptable is so wide and so varied that it's not, like, comparisons are just kind of irrelevant in our world. We don't live at those extremes. So generally a comparison, like when you read it in a question, like a literature question or whatever, indicative of two opposites. Well, you don't need to be the opposite of anything. You don't need to be, compared to such and such, or you don't need to contrast with such and such, just because you're just the way you are, and that's worth celebrating as it is. You don't have to make yourself better or more like someone. There's a difference between admiring and emulating certain things and comparing. Comparing, we just forget that we have intrinsic value, and rather than taking the bits and pieces that we like about everything going on around us and taking them as our own and making them part of our personality, we end up substituting things. And that's just, like I said, it's really tragic, because then you lose your individuality and you lose your uniqueness, and that, I think, is what makes the world really, really interesting. The other thing, too, is that we get caught up in the fact that we think other people are comparing themselves to us. Chances are they are, but in a way that, especially if they have eating disorders, in a way that is favorable to you, not to them. Nobody goes, oh my god, look how fat she is, I'm so glad I'm not her. Unless they have a very, very severe eating disorder. In which case, okay, maybe you do, but you also have some issues. A lot of people, there's a saying that goes, you wouldn't be worried about how much people think about you if you knew how seldom they actually did. People are always thinking about themselves in terms of comparisons. Yeah, they're comparing themselves to you, but generally speaking, unless they have like histrionic or like narcissistic personality disorder, they're not thinking badly of you. And generally, because human beings have a tendency to be positive, in general, overall, they're probably thinking favorably of you, if anything. And that, of course, is completely unfathomable to anybody with an eating disorder, and as such, we get guarded, and we get to the point where we're like, you know what, back off completely, because I already think I know what you're thinking about me, and that's not cool. I have this concept where if you're going to compare, you have to compare fair, and an example of that for me would be, okay, so this girl in the change room is much thinner than me, and I envy that. But at the same time, I have to remember that my body is capable of swimming at a collegiate level. Hers is not. So I swim like 10 times faster than she does, and yes, I'm bigger, but in order to swim 10 times faster, I need that bigger body, that more streamlined, athletic, muscular body type in order to achieve that. So if you're going to compare, you have to compare fair. You're always going to measure up to someone, or you're going to fall down, but you're always going to exceed expectations for someone, and you're going to, fall short of expectations for someone. The point, basically, I hope that everybody gets is that comparing is just, it's so irrelevant in our world, because there's just too much room for error, and too much room for, it's like apples and oranges. We're each our own individual fruit, and you're comparing yourself to something else that's completely different. In terms of the genders often get compared. Generally speaking, our society, especially during adolescence, is far more forgiving on men than on women, although that's changing, again, unfortunately. I wish it were changing the other way, and it would be more lenient for us all, but it gets to the point where we get compared to them, and there's a spectrum of when puberty starts and when puberty ends, and generally speaking, girls are done before guys are, so they have a more adult body before guys do, and a lot of people can really, unfortunately, take a lot of heat for that. And I know personally, most sports have men's and women's, right? And when I say, when I use sporting examples, it's because it's all I know. You can come up with other examples, that's great. Let them, write them down and comment. But swimming is one of the only sports that's men and women combined. We don't race against guys, obviously, but we race against, we have the two teams are doing the same practice, the two genders are doing the same practice on the same times a lot of the time. And it can be hard because I have a body type that is larger than a lot of guys, and they swim probably at about the same speed I do. And so I get told, you need to drop weight. Well, you really don't want to be recommending that to me, because when you look at it, I bench press more than your guys do, I leg press more than your guys do, and I swim as fast as your guys do. And again, you're comparing two different genders, or two different bodies, or two different genders, and it's just two different characteristics. It's nuts. We get to the point where we're not even comparing in a way that makes sense. Yeah. So if you're going to compare, at least do it fairly. If you're a member of this, it's not really worth it. You're going to come up short, or you're going to exceed some expectations, and vice versa. And, that's just the way it is. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You're going to, I guess it's just sort of more embrace comparison rather than let it rule your life and delegate what exactly you're going to do that day, or what exactly your next course of action is going to be. Okay, I think I'm pretty close to the end of 10 minutes, but take care. I'll see you next week, and I hope that there's some thinking going on, and definitely feel free to record the thinking in the comments. Take care. Bye.